You're allowed 2 colors.
Bonjour, ça va? Ouais, toi?
So we're dying for talkative people, but not for mine. But then we did it. Hey, how are you? Nice Brian. John.
So viel, und wenn du in der Einleitung schon deine Sachen sagen würdest, und sagen, ja, wir machen den Frankophonen. Du musst Hello.
Hello.
I'm going to go back.
Okay.
Give it at the end, sorry.
No, at the end.
Doesn't quite. Let's we want it more dramatic. Hand them out.
This live stream.
So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the National Federation's meeting of Plovdiv, 22nd of July 2017. The meeting to give you the latest progress on the review projects that have been ongoing since the Tokyo Congress. Pass the floor to the President of FISA, Jean-Christophe Roland, for an introduction.
Good afternoon and welcome to you all to this National Federation meeting. Actually, this is the fifth one of a series of 6 that we have planned to share with you and the National Federation the progression of the 4 project reviews the Executive Committee had decided to launch right after the Extraordinary Congress in Tokyo. It's not only about sharing, it's about getting your feedback, and as you know, it's very important that you do contribute in this exercise and in this process. So I will make it short, but you know that key decisions were taken in Tokyo, and then we moved to a new phase. And the 4 projects you have on the screen, the 4 projects are the following. Rule 36. As you know, the Olympic program for Tokyo 2020 was not known when in Tokyo, so the Extraordinary Congress gave the authority to amend Rule 36 to the next Ordinary Congress. So it will be in Sarasota, Badminton at the Ordinary Congress that the delegates will decide to amend the World Championship program. The lightweight, come back. We have another project on the lightweight based on how to deal with the impact of the new Olympic program. The Olympic qualification system, this is a very important exercise. As you know, FISA will have to submit as a proposal the system that will be decided by the IOCs. And last one is para rowing. As you know, we have entered a new para Paralympic cycle, and also we have a new racing distance that bring us the opportunity to reassess the strategy for our para rowing. So let's go now to the timing, to the process. As you can see, it's an ongoing exercise. We have the 4th project, and the first time we've met with the federation was in May, early May, to agree on the terms of reference of this project. And as you can see on the screen, we have now moved step by step, and we are now at the, I would say, I'm pleased with the progression and with the good progress that has been made with on this 4 project. And we had a council meeting in Lucerne, so that we have been able, the council members have been able to make another step into that the different project. And we will be presenting you today, and Matt will take the floor in a minute, where we are and the last proposal we have been discussed and decided with the council. So just to remind you that there are 2 of these projects have a deadline by the Congress or by the end of the year. For Rule 36, it's a decision that will take place, I say it again, in Sarasota, Bradenton. For the qualification system, it's a decision from the council that will be submitted to the IOC, I think it's in October. And for the last 2 projects, it will take more time, and we will make a report at the Congress. But these 2 projects will continue until next year. So I will now just present you the decision that the IOC made. On the 9th of June. It was initially expected on the 9th of July, but it has been advanced to the 9th of June. So the proposal that was voted in Tokyo has been validated by the IOC Executive Board. So we have now the Gender Equal Balance Program. And the other information we got was the number of athletes, and from 550 we have now go down to 526, which is a cut by 24, which represent 4.5% of our total quota, which is among the 7 sports affected by cuts, which is a minimal impact compared to the other sports. I think I've covered the general context and the background. Now Matt will present you where we are in the next steps we have achieved at the council meeting in Lucerne.
Okay, thank you. We just handed out a paper which summarizes some of the key issues, and you'll see that on some issues there is a pretty clear position taken. On other issues, we're seeking more feedback and more discussion, and some of them are quite difficult and sensitive issues as well. Let's start with the World Championship Program project. We just reminded you of the decision to delay this point until after the IOC decision, to give the authority to the Congress on the 2nd of October to make this decision. Just to review with you the terms of reference, we've had input from the working groups to help create ideas, review ideas, give pluses and minuses, and put forward proposals. Some proposals were received from national federations. They're published on the website now in the Congress area. As JC said, the council went through all of these principles, and I'll explain their position on some of them in a minute. We have the discussion here and are seeking your feedback here. On the 2nd of August, we are required to publish the agenda papers for the Congress. We have another NF meeting in Trakai to try to continue to advance toward solid positions. Again, the proposals will be presented for vote at the Congress on the 2nd of October, and there will be a series of votes leading to one proposed block World Championships program option to be voted against the existing rule. It takes 2/3 majority to replace the existing rule. Okay, reviewing the key principles. Some of you have been to several of these meetings, and this is the 5th time you hear this, but we are shortening it up. Gender equality, you've heard us repeat the importance that the world feels about gender equality, and that there is gender equality in many of our programs. The Council believes gender equality is essential and favors that the World Championship program becomes gender equal immediately. So it's the decision of the National Federation delegates about this. The Council believes this is an important principle, and immediately rather than delay. Excellence, we've discussed this several times. The Council agrees with the idea that excellence is achieved through at least 3 rounds of racing, and a World Championship gold medal should be the result of having competed against at least 6 other crews to give it full credibility. The natural death rule, which is the rule of at least 7 entries in 3 consecutive years, is this mechanism that was created about 12 or 16 years ago to automatically remove an event from the World Championship program. But again, the Extraordinary Congress has the power and authority to add back at each Extraordinary Congress every 4 years. So we think that by establishing excellence as this definition of 7 or more is the giving the credibility to an event to stay on the World Championship program. Pathways, we discussed pathways, and we believe that when we are considering the World Championship program, that an athlete's pathway to the highest level of competition is an important consideration when we address the World Championship programs. You'll find on the website a chart like this for the different disciplines, and you can see, for example, with men, juniors, there are 18 sweep rowing seats, 7 sculling seats. Those lead to 18 open seats at the under 23, 7 open sculling seats at the under 23, and 13 lightweight seats at the under 23. So in fact, we go narrow, wider, and then narrow, and you'll see in a minute some proposals to deal with that. On women, of course, there's not a Coxed 4 at the junior level, so they have 14 sweep seats, leading to 14, but have the same program once you get up into the senior level. So it's important we're thinking about this, and we wanted to add the element of our consideration should also take into account national events, regional events, and continental events. And we hope that these reflections will go also to the continental federations and your national federations when you create your national championship or continental championship programs. We said that we would try to create a mission statement and objectives and goals about the World Championship. So you'll see on the paper a draft of a mission statement, a vision and purpose and goals. I won't read it. You can see and read for yourself the latest draft to try to create a vision, a mission, and purpose and goals for the World Championship program. I'll just read the purpose and goals: to provide a platform and conditions that allow the best rowers of the world to perform to the best of their abilities, to determine world champions, medalists, and a final world ranking for a given year in each boat class of each age category, promote and facilitate broad participation for rowers representing national federations from all around the world, provide an entertaining and informative experience for all audiences of all nationalities, languages, and ages, to stage the event in a way which supports FISA's strategic plan for the sport of rowing and upholds these principles that are found in the statutes, the development of the individual, promoting international understanding, etc. So please have a look. If you have better ideas, we're really happy to hear them, leading toward finalizing this at the Congress. Now we go to the detailed proposals. Like I said, we will include all options you will see in the agenda papers. So nothing is going to be eliminated from your consideration and your vote on the 2nd of October. And for each one, of course, there will be a status quo option. So if you like the status quo in one category, but you want to make a change in another category to create this box, this vote against the existing one, that will be an option. So for open, we have 3 alternative scenarios and the status quo. We are continuing to collect feedback to lead to possibly a council recommendation, but at this point we still want to continue to talk and hear from you and see if there are other ideas. So the status quo, we all know, is not gender balanced, and that would be no change to the current boat classes. So for the open categories, the option A, which has been proposed out there, is to create a gender balanced program by eliminating the 3 boat classes in open men, which cause the program to not be gender balanced. So that's an option A which has been proposed. Option B is to eliminate the coxed pair, but instead of eliminating the coxed fours, it's to add women's coxed fours. And some of the arguments there were that this creates the same feeding system of rowers who have a goal at the end of the competition year. There are seats or World Championship medals available. It's been said that the Cox 4 perhaps is a more appropriate boat for juniors and rowing on rivers for countries or places where it's river rowing. A lot of arguments like this. On the pathways analysis, it widens the lower part of the pathway of the pyramid leading to the top, so more rowers are motivated and incentivized to train to compete junior, under 23, leading to their decisions to continue into senior and to the Olympics. So that's B. And a variation of B is to open this at the junior level with the Cox 4, but then trim it back at the under 23 level by eliminating the open men's Cox 4. So those are the 3 that have been proposed so far, and we'd be really happy to hear if anyone else has a better or a different idea at the end of the meeting. Moving on to lightweights, we have 7 scenarios here. Some of them are not gender balanced, and we'll talk about them. First is the status quo, which of course we all know does not include lightweight sweep rowing boats for women, junior and senior and under 23. That's the status quo. Option 1 is one of the several options to create equal programs for the genders. Option 1, add in women's sweep rowing boats at the senior and under 23 level to match the men's in the current situation. Option 2 is to add the pairs in at the senior and under 23 level and eliminate the fours, the men. Option 3, also gender equal, is to eliminate basically all sweep lightweight rowing, which was presented at one of the NF conferences. Option 4 is not gender equal, but it retains as a transitional move the pairs for the men, eliminating the fours. Option 5 is adding the pair for the under 23 women, eliminating the other boats. You can see the senior level and the one at the under 23. Option 6 is adding in both pairs but keeping the 4s for the men. This will be a 3-year decision, a decision that is valid for 3 years, 18, 19, and 20, and then would be reassessed at the Extraordinary Congress in 2021. So those are the options that we've received from submissions, from comments that you have to consider, and the council will consider if they make a recommendation or a couple of recommendations. On para, we have 2 scenarios that have come forward plus the status quo. The status quo is this. Pending question is whether the IPC will accept our proposal to add the mixed PR2 mixed PR3 double to the program of the Paralympic Games. And that will be a decision of the governing board in Abu Dhabi on the 7th of September. Option 1 for the para, which came from ideas in Poznan, was to create feeder boats for the PR2 category, which is the double, to create 2 singles. So the TA discipline to make a men's and women's single, so that if you don't have the 2, there's still a world championship for one or the other or both, or it's a reserve for the double. And for the PR3, the LTA, the PR3 to make pairs, it was raised that with upper body impairments, sculling is not an option for several LTA athletes, for PR3 athletes, and that the pairs would be an option to keep athletes going or to be reserves for the Paralympic team. So those are the options we've heard up till now, and would be really happy to hear before August 2nd any other ideas. And all right, so again, any options missing? We will publish the papers on August 2nd. We will make another consultation and meeting like this in Trakai, and then there will be discussions, of course, at the Congress itself, leading to your votes to narrow down to the one block. Okay, we'll take a moment if anyone wants to make a comment now, or hold reserve for the end and we can talk about anything at the end. Anyone want to raise something now? Please, Brian.
Yeah, you have the gender equality, which you have positioned on as a council to endorse that immediately, and you have also the natural death rule, which you also support. That can conflict each other if one of the genders becomes the natural death rule. We didn't have a view on that as a Dutch Federation, but do you have a view on that as the Visa Council already?
Thank you. I'll just repeat the question. The comment is that what happens if we do continue with the natural death rule, which by implication could cause the program to become gender unequal. Yeah. And our approach on this is that every 4 years we have the chance to reevaluate. So if one vote falls out for a year or two, like the Women's 4 in 2011, it caused a big reflection and projects to be launched, and the 4 was reintroduced at the Extraordinary Congress. So we think it's the principle, the council discussed, the principle is to start gender equal, but keep this in there to be sure that we can identify weakness and either take actions or make a different action at the Extraordinary Congress. So it could be 1 year or 2 years. It's not completely gender equal, but there's a reason for that, and we have to work on that reason or find another solution. Okay, we'll go next into the Olympic qualification system. So, as you've heard, we now have the guidance of the IPC on what we can do, IOC, what we can do. And again, the IPC will decide on the events and quotas in September, so we don't have information yet on what's going to happen with the Paralympic Games program. But the IOC Executive Board gave us our plate now that we have to work on. So let's start to go through. First of all is the excellence participation ratio. This is a historical perspective on how this has evolved. And this is on numbers of rowers. We started in Atlanta when we had 600 with 83% devoted to excellence, which by definition is the World Championships and the final qualification regatta, and 17% to participation, which in our definition are the places gained at the continental qualification regattas. And it's evolved to 85-15 last time around with Rio. On the number of boats, again, we have a lot of singles in the and small boats in the qualification regattas, in the continental qualification regattas, and it started at 77.23. When we were cut from 600 to 550 for Sydney, it fell to 71.29, and it has evolved to be 70.30 in the last round. So the council agrees that it's about right, it's generally appropriate, 70-30 as a guidance for our decisions on the qualification system, but we do note that decisions on other principles will slightly affect this, and we have to also consider the other principles, and we can't just decide on this and go. You'll see in the following slides. How do we reach this ratio? So the discussion was to define what is excellence? What is the appropriate number for excellence? And we've come up with 13 being the target number for the excellence side for small boats, and 11 of them qualify at the World Championships, 2 at the final qualification regatta. For fours and quads, we're still between 7 and 10, and you'll see more about this in a minute. Again, with the principle, 2 will remain at the final qualification regatta. And 8s, we're still at 7 with the 5 and 2. But again, and you'll see in the coming slides that the other principles affect some of these, particularly the fours and quads decision. So, comparing to Rio, where 9 singles were allocated for excellence, we're proposing to move to 13. For pairs, it was 15 for women, 13 for men. We're proposing 13. For doubles, 13. For lightweight doubles, 13 for excellence, 11 and 2. For the fours and the quads, you'll hear more about that in a minute, between 7 and 10, and then the 8, 7. Then on the participation places, for reference, 23 singles were allocated for continental qualification regattas. And in the scenarios we're looking at now, we're between 15 and 27 on this figure. And for lightweight doubles, we were at 9 in the Rio phase, and the scenarios we're looking at go between 5 and 10. So let's keep going so you can see how this plays out. There was a proposal to add a pair to the continental qualification, and the council sees the positive sides of this proposal, which you have heard many times in our meetings. But given the cut and the allocation of more excellence places, for example, to singles and others, we just don't see the way that we could add them into the continental qualification without jeopardizing the other principles we discussed. So basically, we're not continuing forward with the pair in our thoughts about the continental qualification systems. So let's go to the options that are under discussion. So based on those principles you've just heard, we have a number of options that we're looking at how the different principles affect the numbers. In option 1A, we would have 7 8s, 10 quads and 4s, and 13 in the small boats, leaving 15 and 7 in the participation boats. So if we go back again, Rio 23 and 9 were the participation numbers. This would put it at 15 and 7, and the ratio would be 78-22, which is pretty far from 70-30, which was our target. And you can look on the website to see the details of how this plays out. Option 1B is to move to 32 singles and 18 lightweight doubles. So option 1A was 28 singles, 20 doubles. Option B, 32 singles, 18 doubles. Why? It was mentioned in one of the meetings. 18 creates A, B, and C, full A, B, and C finals. And what is the value in those two racing in a final D? Does that add to the program? So this is option B, which is still a bit high on 77-23, a bit off from what we wanted. And you'll hear about the quad and the four. There's a lot of appreciation for those boats expressed at the last meeting and by the council as well. But let's look at option 2, which is 7 quads, creating more participation boats, putting the, let's say, the cursor, the balance on 71-29. So 34 singles, 23 lightweight doubles. Again, sticking with 13 on the small boats and 7 on the 8s. Let's look at option 2B, which changes it a bit. The singles, 27 singles and 7 lightweight doubles, moves it to 69-31, which is a bit more than the 70-30. We tried an option 3 with 9 places in the quad instead of 10 or 7. That would be a 3-boat B final. And by doing that, we would hit 75-25. And option 4, 9 in the quad and 9 in the 4, would put us at 72-28, which is pretty close to the target 70-30. Have B finals with 3 boats. Hopefully provide enough boats in the quads and the 4s to still motivate medium-sized federations to go for that boat. And still have enough participation places, 23 singles and 7 lightweight doubles. So those are the, let's say, the options that the principles we discussed more focus in on in terms of the numbers. Going on, and you can find these all on the NF meetings section, the review project section of the website, in the FISA section. And you'll see that there's an analysis on the right on the effect on sweep sculling, open lightweight, and the excellence and participation. But there are also a number of principles in how we reach the qualification places. First of all, 2 chances to qualify. The principle of 2 opportunities in every boat class, the council fully supports and thinks this is an important principle to maintain. Doubling up. At the last meeting, a question, a comment was raised to create a compulsory doubling up system, and the council, and you can read this comment as well in the paper, has taken a position about doubling up. Basically, we don't consider it appropriate for Tokyo 2020 event programs. Doesn't mean we exclude it for the future. We think it's not the time yet to consider that option, and we are not going to pursue that for 2020. Compulsory doubling up. Okay. Next, excellence. We've received proposals on limits or capping the number of places you could obtain for the Olympic Games. The Council does not support capping the number of qualification places that may be achieved by a national federation from the World Championships or the national final qualification regatta. I believe excellence should be open, and if you and your athletes qualify through the excellence route, it should be your reward for excellence. Another proposal is to reduce access to the participation places, and that is, if you qualify as an NF a certain number of boats at the World Championships, you would lose the chance to go to the Continental Qualification Regatta, having demonstrated that your federation can achieve excellence on its own through the excellence means, and that this would mean that the Continental Qualification Regattas are set up to increase participation. And the Council agrees with this principle, but wants to study further all the possible impacts that this causes. So we're continuing to consult and brainstorm on this. So if we do draw the line, this is the number of boats qualified by national federations at the 2015 World Championships. If we were to draw the line at 2, you qualify at least two or more at the World Championships 2019, you would not have the right to go to the Continental Qualification Regatta. You would have full right to all 14 events with 2 boats available at the final qualification regatta. So if we drew it at 2, we would exclude 25 member federations from attending the Continental Qualification Regattas, which would mean 126 would be eligible for the Continental Qualification Regattas. If we drew the line at 3, it would have meant in 2015, 19 of you would have been excluded from the Continental Qualification Regattas. And here's how it plays out in terms of countries from 2015 if we applied it. So the question is, if we take this idea forward, where do we draw the line? And further, to carry this forward, if we took 2, it'd mean an NF qualifying 2 or more crews could not compete at the Continental Qualification Regattas, that's clear. An NF that qualified 1 boat and could go to the Continental Qualification Regattas, they would only be allowed to qualify 1 boat from the Continental Qualification Regattas. So there would be maxed at 2 from the World Championships and the Continental Qualification Regattas. If they qualified no boats at the World Championships, they would have access to 2 boats total using this principle at the Continental Qualification Regattas. You'll see there's other ideas coming forward which would cap the number of boats at the Continental Qualification Regattas. Now we go to the Continental Qualification Principles and limitations at the Continental Qualification Regatta itself to increase participation. We have the 1 boat per gender, which was what we did for Rio for the first time. And in support of that, it is said that it would support gender equity, equality actually, and encourage NFs to develop both programs, men's and women's. Those were comments to support this idea. We can go a step further to increase participation and say that a federation at the Continental Qualification Regatta would be allowed only 1 boat to qualify, and it could be either men's or women's boat. Would greatly increase the number of NOCs, member federations, participating at the games, possibly risks that it goes lower on the performance level. But we have talked to Olympic Solidarity in order to encourage more scholarships to help athletes from the countries that would typically be at the Continental Qualification Regattas to get scholarships. Another option that was discussed is just saying 2 boats per federation and let the federation decide. It will give them more freedom to make the selection based on their development strategy, but a risk is that it favors one or another gender and in doing so. We have a new proposal that one issue that came up last time is that we had a crew that won their Continental Qualification Regatta but could not go to the Olympics because they won in both male boats. And the female boat that qualified came 4th. And it was very difficult for that national federation to tell someone who won their continental qualification regatta, you can't go to the Olympic Games. So one of the ideas is to say, if you win continental qualification, you can go to the games subject to maximum of 2 boats from a federation. So it's a bit tricky still, but it's a way to reduce the possibility that someone who wins a continental qualification regatta doesn't go to the games. If 3 or more, they would be restricted to 2 in this case, or 1 if we go to 1. So we still want to talk about this, talk individually, and get more feedback on these because they're quite tricky and quite impactful. Some more principles. You recall, we call it the Belgian dilemma, that they and several federations had this dilemma, Mexico, Egypt, Ecuador, some others. We were trying to find an objective way that this selection would take place. If 2 crews had the same placing at the Continental Regatta, but we are not able to find an objective means that works, so we agree it should be left to the National Federation Selection Committee or Board to make that decision between the 2, but we believe the NF should publish a set of guidelines about how this decision will be made that will be known by the athletes before they hit the regatta. If we go to 1 or 2, and we free up places because of this decision, that we would allocate, instead of to the next highest ranked boat, that we would allocate to the next highest ranked boat from a federation that had not yet qualified for the games. So we're really focusing the continental qualification regattas on increasing participation. The Council is positive about this idea, but wants to continue to study all consequences that this would cause. And a question came up, what if by doing that you run out of competitors from the event? And the answer is that we would then take that place in the single or the lightweight double and return it to the excellence category at the final qualification regatta in that class. So it would go from 2 to 3 possibly in the single or the lightweight double at the final qualification regatta and be accessible by the excellence countries in those boat classes. So we've given you this working document on where we got to on the last council meeting. We really welcome feedback on that. We want to have further discussion, and the council will be trying to create recommendations or advice on the Rule 36 between now and Track I, so we can focus discussion on the Rule 36 programs in Track I, and then of course there will be discussion at the Congress on October 2nd. Okay, let me just finish with the status. If you haven't been at one of our meetings with lightweight rowing, we are in the why, really defining why lightweight rowing is important for our sport. We have addressed which lightweight events should be in the World Championship program, how should they be handled at the Olympic qualification system, but we want to really identify what further research or analysis should we do now so we can get that started, and we have until the 2018 Congress to fully assess this question. With para rowing, yes, we've made recommendations for the World Championship programs, but also in this phase we want to identify the research projects or analysis projects related to the race distance, to the equipment, while assessing the health, safety, and attractiveness. For example, the para boats, how can we free them up a little bit more, and we are going to engage a third-party independent research institute to study this question for us. And we're waiting for the Paralympic qualification process once we know the quota and the events for the Paralympic Games. Again, all of these can be found on these are part of the website with the review projects, and you can give feedback through that site. Thank you for those who have given feedback. We've included them in the minutes of the meetings. So now we go to your comments, suggestions, or questions. Johnny.
What I understood of the proposal of a number of double lightweights, there is a big possibility that the lightweight will be excellent boat, because maybe I read wrong that there are 7 crews. So when we will have 7 crews, we don't have any qualification regatta. So in the continental qualification regatta, we will have only singles. So we don't have any Belgium dilemma, because there are only singles for the continental qualification. Because
No. There would be 7 at the continental qualifications.
So 7 in all continents.
2, 1, 2, 1, something like this. I'll show you. Yeah, you have to
Because
look carefully.
that picture is really...
It's too complicated to try to show you on the
Yeah,
screen.
this one, I see this one,
Yeah.
yeah. 7 lightweight
So,
double.
In participation, 7 lightweight doubles. This would be distributed 2 Asia, Oceania, 1 Africa, 2 Americas, 2 European. In this scenario,
So it's very small number, because there will be 9 plus 7, they are totally 16.
for Rio, we have 9. So go from 9 to 7. But we're adding the Europeans.
So we reduce the universality of lightweights in this case.
This is one of the questions. And where's the balance there? So,
Because the question is, if to the lightweights we reduce also the universality, I don't know where we go.
so
in
the play comes down to basically the 4s and quads, and how we position the singles and doubles. And that's the key, I would say, the key dilemma when we review these options.
Because all the rest is okay. I think quadruple, coxes 4 is good, but we should also be focused a bit more on the universality of lightweights, so offer chance to. It's okay that it's participation, but this participation is the target of excellence. So if we reduce too much numbers, the motivation for the excellence will be less. That's all.
Christian.
I do not agree, Johnny, that the reduction for 4s and quads is a good idea. I
No,
think
it's balance. It's not the reduction. It's balance.
no, it's going down in both events, and I think a minimum of 10 places in 4s and quads is a requirement. And I think the position that we got presented today with the World Championship programs and also the principles comes to the conclusion that there's a big pressure on quads and 4s, and you can only achieve all the criteria as you said, that you reduce 4s and quads. And I think this needs to be outweighed against the 70-30 criteria, and I would kindly ask the Council to reconsider that position of 70-30, because I think it's a requirement for our sport that we have strong 4s and strong quad competitions also in the future. It's no point adding coxed 4s in the World Championship programs if then we are on a big pressure, and that's the result of the statement about doubling up and also the reduction of the quota, that there is a pressure.
Thank you. Go to David, then Norbert.
Okay, I have 2 points. One is to support Switzerland in what they just said. I thought it was very well stated in Lucerne that those are important boat classes for, if you like, medium-sized nations that can aspire to those boat classes. So I think we should be really careful. To me, 10 is about the minimum 2. I also just want to ask a question. I did ask this in Belgrade, so going back a bit. If we are to consider, for example, with the coxed 4 introducing Cox for a junior under 23 for women, or in the lightweight categories, sweep for women. I asked then, can that be deferred later than 2018? The answer was from JC, no. But I think if you need to allow, if we're introducing something new, you do need to allow some time for that boat class to grow. So my question back is, I understand it has to be fixed, but can you consider fixing it for, instead of starting 2018, starting 2020, although still decided in Sarasota? And if you can, could that be considered in the discussion, please? To allow the boat class, the new one, to grow. Otherwise, I think you risk starting without enough critical mass.
So just to be clear, you're suggesting that it's actually this, but that the under 23 fours are phased in 2019 or 2020?
It's a date to be discussed, but not as early as 2018. The date itself, to me, is not important, but the principle that it could be, take 1 or 2 years more to grow, is my question.
Yeah, I'm not sure my answer was absolutely no, because actually the decision, and it was in the past, decision can be enforced when the Congress decides. So actually we can just take any decision with and postpone the implement the date at the date we want. So the point is, it cannot be too open. No. So it has to be phased, and I don't think my answer was no to any possibility for
okay. So you would propose option whatever B1, which would be 2018 4 coxed junior women's coxed fours for 2018, and 2019 or 2020 for under 23 women's coxed fours?
Even
maybe. All I'm asking the question is, if that's a principle that can be considered, please could that be included in your notes? Because I think it may also help people see it. If the principle is, can we name a year, whichever it is, that allows the event to grow, especially at junior level, I think that's important. Yeah, I'm not trying to be specific.
Okay. The answer is yes, it is possible. Norbert.
Oh, thank you. I will not start with the longboats because everybody knows my position in this, but the balance between excellence and participation on the ratio of 70-30, is this something the council has met to come and wants to achieve, or is it? The issue is we've lost about 13-14% in boats from 2000 to 2016 or 2020, and why can we not shift more to the excellence? Because the sport is growing, spots are getting less, and the excellence are pushed out because the ratio is still being there for participation. Is it not an idea? Just this is maybe extreme. Keep the participation only on the singles and have excellence on all other boat classes, having a full A and B final at the Olympics.
Everything's possible. I would say that we are still, discussing this as a viable option, but more than 10, I think, would cause it to go too far out of proportion on what we need to do for the participation side. That's my personal reaction.
Yeah, actually, it's exactly the discussion we are having. It's about the compromise where we put the cursor, and it's about also, for sure, we understand your position about excellence, but we have also to achieve this universality aspect. So we can discuss if whether it's 75, 72, or 78, and when the council agrees about 70-30, it's not 70.0, 30.0. It's about the I would say in a more large view, it's about this kind of ratio. But as you have seen on the screen, there are some options which are not are not really 70-30. So I think it's all the discussion is about where we could discuss between excellence and participation.
You can still keep the national federations at the Olympics if you run it over the singles, because in Rio there have been 5 men's doubles and 4 or 5 women's doubles from other continents, which would have been rewarded a spot in the single. Of course, this is extreme, but it's the middle excellence is pushed away.
And you have to recall that we saved the lightweight double from some very tough critics in the IOC by claiming that it was an important means to encourage universality. And it would be contradictory of us having made that claim to save the lightweight double and then chop it out.
One question more. Do you know how many crews they're doubling up in Rio?
Do we know? I don't think any personally. Kim did in London, you recall, but in Rio.
But usually Romanian and US they double up.
Alan?
Year and height in Rio.
Your pair and 8, women's pair and 8, doubled up into the 8.
I think also US. They
Not
have,
Rio.
No.
women US.
Not real.
Not in Rio.
Because in one way, this is possible to do it if we make the program. So it's allowed, but it's not allowed to do it. So maybe we can start with some formula of doubling up that can be accepted. But we say on the surface. Because I think we should think about doubling up, not after Tokyo, because the numbers are very small, especially for the 4. And again, I said also last time, we are on the limit of possibility to doubling up. If you go below some numbers, and from what I feel, these numbers can be also less, maybe it's also not possible to doubling up.
Okay. Someone else?
I just would like to repeat what Norbert said and to really state that the lightweight double places should not be increased to seek universality, and that 20 is an absolute maximum because whatever the interpretation is, and to really seek the universality we all know we need it and we want it through the singles.
The members and management to try to really understand what's our view, and we'll report back to you when we feel like we've understood really what's going on with that last sentence, with that sentence on the bottom of the first page of that letter. Okay, anyone else?
On another topic, I had a meeting this week with my colleague from Swiss Triathlon. They are really proud to have a new discipline for Tokyo with a mixed relay event. They are not yet sure if they have to use the same athletes or if new disciplines. And I think, and we have to wait
where this is going.
Yeah, and as I already said, the stability we had for the last 24 years will never come again. And we'll be on that discussion every 4 years, because this is the process the IOC is now having, just to ensure the flexibility in the Olympic program, and they will put the pressure on every sport, not only on rowing, but to ensure that, I mean, there is a kind of flexibility and movement in the program. And to come to the triathlon sport, I understand. I mean, it's a totally different. It's a new sport in the Olympic Games. First time I think it was in Atlanta, or it's very young in the games, and they had only 2 events. with 106, I think, athletes, which makes I would say their equation slightly different than in rowing, which is a part of the game from the very beginning with a large number of events. So, but I
Their quota was not increased, it was just that they have, with the athletes that do qualify, they make the mixed race, or they cut the quota on the men's and women's races and have different athletes for the mixed race. Several sports added mixed events within the same quota, and they are more flexible in the number of events in order to move in that direction. All right. Thank you very much. Come and see us, and welcome any further suggestions. Thank you very much.